So today's video is about 4 ways that you can tell if your feminine energy is out of alignment. If you are new here, my name is Whitney and my channel usually talks a little about beauty, self-care, and something that I affectionately call high maintenance energy. But there's another facet to high maintenance energy and self-care that I would like to discuss more, and something that kind of governs my beliefs surrounding high maintenance energy and self-care, and that is femininity. Femininity, feminine energy, all of the above is kind of the umbrella that everything else that I tend to talk about on my channel rests beneath. And I just want to say super fast, number 1, if you are interested in discussion of feminine energy, femininity, divine feminine energy, etc., Patreon's a good place to be. In fact, today after I finish this video, I'm going to do our book club video on Patreon. Patreon is about to be rebranded, and much of this channel will shortly be rebranded as well. So if this conversation interests you, definitely come check out Patreon for that. And the next book we'll be reading in the month of May, we'll be talking about feminine energy as well. So if that subject is something you are fascinated by the way that I am, Patreon would be a great place to hang out. But I wanted to say something really fast. Well, 2 things really fast. 3 things, actually. Number 1, if you are new here, subscribe. Come follow me on social media. Number 2, I have been a little quiet on social media, like really phoning it in lately. And that is because I have been wanting to talk about something, namely this, femininity and feminine energy, for a long time. I have so much to say about it. I can sit and talk about it for hours, and I don't need notes. I don't need to study or write a script for it. It just organically comes out of me because I'm so passionate about the subject. But the problem is I'm a little nervous to talk about it. It does make me a little apprehensive because in the wrong hands, in the wrong ears, with the wrong, objective interest in the subject, it can be treated as something inherently negative, which is not at all my intention or what I want this space or my platform to turn into. So I just want to say that if you are interested in this subject, if you celebrate this subject, if you feel joyful in this conversation, you are welcome here. I don't care if you're man or woman or transgender or whatever, like wherever you fall on the gender spectrum, I don't care. You are welcome here if you enjoy this conversation. Now, you are expressly unwelcome here, and I'm not going to have a lot of patience or sympathy for you if you've come here just to be a jerk. And I just want to say that because a lot of people feel like once you start talking about femininity and masculinity or anything along those lines, that you are actively trying to disclude certain people. And I'm telling you, that's not what I'm doing. If you feel discluded anyway, I don't know. But that's not on me at this point. So that's something I wanted to say. And the last thing I wanted to say is that I honestly believe that feminine and masculine are just polarities, and we assign positive or negative attributes to them. And if you want to hear a little more about kind of why I embrace this school of thought, then there's 2 videos I've already made about femininity down below. Also, you're going to hear roosters crowing. We have these roosters named Beef and Rufio who are always on my property. But anyway, if you want to hear a little more about kind of the in and outs of why I care about this so much and why I'm passionate about it, definitely watch those videos because I don't want to have to get in the same spiel every single time I start one of these videos. Those videos will be linked down below. They're kind of primers for this subject matter. But all that being said, again, I am not talking about this even necessarily from a gendered perspective. I think femininity and masculinity are energies. I think everyone has both. I think they come in varying degrees, but I think that it has become so overwhelmingly popular to minimize and look down on things that are inherently feminine while praising things that are masculine. Like a big thing I say a lot of is like, let's act like men, let's date like men, let's work like men. And it's kind of like, if what they're doing is so bad, why are we trying to do it? If that makes any sense. That's kind of why I'm talking so much about femininity, because I feel like things that are naturally feminine and naturally come from a feminine energy are just as valuable, just as needed, just as special, just as precious as things that are considered traditionally masculine and in the masculine aspect. So again, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I am very feminine. I've always been very feminine. And the only times in my life that I have tried to shun that, look down on it, neglect it, ignore it, snuff it out, came from a place of trauma. So if you have difficult feelings or difficult relationships to your femininity, my hope is that this video or any videos around it will kind of empower you to find where you fall in this and be restful and find pleasure and joy in it. It's not to change your mind or make you second guess the entire way you look at the world, unless of course the way you look at the world is causing you to look down on the more feminine side of yourself, because I don't think anyone should do that. Whether or not you have a lot of feminine energy or a lot of masculine energy, feminine energy, the feminine aspect, what femininity can bring to the world, to a home, to a community, to a workplace, to whatever, should not be undervalued and should heavily be celebrated, in my opinion. So, all that being said, let's talk about some ways that you can tell if your feminine energy is out of alignment and a couple of things you can do about it. I have a couple of notes about this, but mostly it's going to be me rambling a lot, so get ready. So one of the first ways you can tell for sure your feminine energy is out of alignment is if "I can do it all" is kind of like your motto. If it is your prayer, your mantra, if it's what you live and die by, if you think it is the most valuable thing you have to offer as a person, if you think it defines you, if you think that to depend on, count on, rely on other people, especially men, makes you less of a person, then I think there's a very good chance that your feminine energy is out of alignment. Please excuse how raspy my voice is. I have filmed this video 3 times. The reason that this is a surefire way to know that your feminine energy is out of alignment kind of goes back to what I was saying before, where I feel like the idea of masculinity being an inherently bad, negative, toxic thing is very popular now. And yet it also kind of seems like women are trying to be everything. Men are not trying to be everything, for sure. They're pretty content just doing what they got to do and what they're supposed to do and what they're called to do and what they need to do. It's a uniquely feminine urge to be all things to all people all of the time, to feel the need to validate themselves through their ability to do everything. And I think that on some level, that's a trauma response. It can be true for both men and women, or feminine and masculine. I definitely can speak for myself and say that my hyper-vigilant, hyper-independence periods of my life were very much so rooted in trauma, because I didn't want to have to rely on or depend on anyone. That's really the long and short of it. I wanted to be solely responsible and solely at the helm of all that I surveyed, because I learned through traumatic experiences when I was younger that it was dangerous or a bad idea in some way to rely on other people. And that was something I had to work on in myself. I think a lot of the issues that we are experiencing between the feminine and masculine aspect are coming from unresolved issues within ourselves. There are obviously bigger societal and systematic things at play. That's not something I can honestly refute, but I definitely think at the end of the day, so much of what we are internalizing and some of the bad choices we're making in our lives have nothing to do with the feminine or masculine. It actually is trauma. It's dysfunction. It's generational trauma. It's bad choices we have not atoned for. It's mistakes we have not forgiven ourselves for. And that's where this whole I got it, I can do it on my own, I can do everything, I don't need no man, I don't need anyone attitude comes from. It's the fear of ever allowing yourself to become restful in anyone else's presence. To relying on someone becomes so scary because you just don't know what you'll do if that's taken away. That's not to say, okay, that we should not all be upwardly mobile, responsible adults. I don't think that is a uniquely feminine necessity, nor do I think it's a uniquely masculine necessity. It's a necessity. It's something we have to be able to do. But that does not mean that you should not be allowed to or expect other people in your life to be able to be counted on. And I think this is especially true when the feminine wants to be in relationship with the masculine. It's so popular now to say, I don't need no man. I got my own. I'm a strong, independent woman. I pay my own bills. I do my own this. I guess what I'm saying is, if this is your defining characteristic, if this is what you think you are, this is all that you are, is your ability to pay your bills, which again, it's a universally necessary life skill. I don't know why what that has to do with being in a relationship with a man. A relationship with a man, a good relationship, is so much more than who's paying bills. It's so much more than even can really be put on paper. It's not a bottom line. I mean, it can be. Obviously, you need to have like your ish sorted out to be in a healthy, happy, successful relationship. But it provides so much more to both parties. And what it really relies on, what the basis of it is, not only is trust, good faith, and all that good stuff, it's also a vulnerability. And I heard it described in a video lately that vulnerability gets a bad rap. When vulnerability is kind of like hope and faith, those things are not weak things at all. They're very strong energies. Hope and faith and vulnerability are crucial, necessary energies to have good relationships with literally anyone. And if you're not willing to be vulnerable in any capacity because you need to continue to be the one in charge and the one running the show and the one doing everything, again, if that feels good to you, which is really a big principle of femininity, is pleasure, finding pleasure, doing things that are pleasurable. If that's just your personality, like very type A people, I get that. That's one thing and that's fine. But if it truly is a trauma response and it feels safer to you to be the only one you can ever count on, I would heavily advise you look into that and figure out if you can bring femininity and that softness and vulnerability into your life in a way that holds room and opens doors and accepts those into your life who want to be there for you, want to care for you, want to look out for you, want to walk this life with you, want to do this with you. It makes me sad a lot of times. I see women in relationships with men saying they don't need a man. And I don't know what could be more of a turnoff in this life than your partner telling you don't need them. I've said that to my husband many times before when I was still heavily in my masculine energy. I don't think it's not doing what you think it's doing. It's just pushing people away and making you look kind of bitter and angry, which you probably aren't. You're probably just traumatized. And I think that you don't want people around you who feel comfortable not being needed by you, who feel like they don't have to contribute to you, who feel like they don't have to mind their P's and Q's. If someone thinks you're just going to leave them and you don't need them anyway, what motivation do they have to try to stay up to snuff and to stick around? If you're going to dip anyway, what's the point? So first, I think the hallmark of someone who lacks feminine energy, or at least a healthy amount or a juicy, sensual, glowy amount of feminine energy, is to believe that you must do everything on your own or you're unvaluable somehow. Femininity, vulnerability, nurturing, creation, all the things that we bring to the table is very valuable. It's not just about everything you can get done in the day. And I don't think valuing yourself and feeling only seen or loved should come from that place. I think that's, again, a trauma response, and I would encourage you to look at it. So the next way you can tell that your feminine energy might be out of alignment is that you believe men and women should act the same, should operate the same. And more than anything, I guess it's okay if you think that way. Again, I really want people to start paying more attention to their outcomes and to the results they're getting with their beliefs. I think what it becomes a problem is if you are consistently frustrated by the fact that they are not the same, and it's causing problems for you. So I'll give a really good example for this, okay? When my mom died at the end of 2019, I obviously pretty much lost it. I was very close to my mom. I talked to my mom every single day, multiple times a day, my entire life. To have her no longer be available to me was hard. I think anyone who loses their mom can agree with that. It's a very difficult loss, but It was the worst, one of the worst times in my marriage, like by far. And it took me a while to really figure out why, this became such a point of contention in my relationship. Why did this thing that should have been a bonding thing for me and my husband, should have been an opportunity for him to be there for me and take care of me and do his end of the bargain in this relationship, so to speak. Why was that not happening? And I can say now that it's definitely not that he wasn't trying to, because he was. The problem was, at that time, my husband couldn't do anything right. He couldn't say anything right. Everything he did and said was wrong. And I remember vividly saying that to him. You're saying all the wrong things. And I figured out why once I started really trying to take in consideration feminine and masculine aspects. And the reason was, number one, while my mom was dying, I was leaning really hard on my best friend, Jacqueline. Hey, girl. And, there was that type of clinging to Jacqueline. And I think it's not only because she's my best friend in the world, but it's also because I was losing my mom, who was a feminine force in my life. I was wanting that nurturing, that emotional sensitivity, that depth of feeling, that very unique, special feminine energy. And my husband is not a feminine man. Like, he's a multifaceted person. He's definitely not a bro, but he is very logical, goal-oriented, bottom line, kind of motivated person. And he is able to be someone I am attracted to. What I am attracted to about him inherently, what I was initially attracted to about him, besides the fact that I think he's fine, is that I like that in a man. I like men who rank higher on the masculine spectrum. I always, always, always have. So it's kind of ridiculous that at the time, and it wasn't like he was being insensitive. It wasn't like he wasn't trying to be there for me. He was. But it wasn't exactly what I wanted. I wanted my mom. I wanted that feminine influence, that feminine nurturing. He doesn't have that. He has a masculine, protect, logical, like he would hold me. Anything he could give me, he was trying to give me. But I could not be made happy with it because what I was craving was feminine companionship in that moment. So this was the big epiphany for me when it came to understanding that to not acknowledge the difference between the feminine and the masculine, to not know where you fall on the feminine and masculine, or where your partner falls on the feminine and masculine, is a good indicator that your feminine alignment is out of whack. Because when you are comfortable and aware of feminine energy and you respect it, you can do the same thing for masculine energy. You don't need the men in your life to be like women for you to find what they bring to the table valuable or special or needed in some way. So like my husband, for example, when I'm guessing, this is just what I'm guessing. He's not said this to me, but I can hypothesize as much. When he wants someone to be intuitive and to get again, in emotions and get in the psychology and get into the intentions and think about like the ethereal aspects of a problem, he comes to me for that. If he wants someone to like love him and tell him how wonderful he is and big and strong and all that kind of stuff, he goes to his woman for that. He's not calling up his friends from college and trying to get that from them and then getting mad when they're not, and vice versa. He doesn't get mad at me when I don't like cup check him and call him a twat or whatever. Like, he knows what he wants from me and what he's going to get from me, and he doesn't try to fight that. Now, I was only fighting that because for such a long time, I was really resistant to the idea that there was any actual difference between men and women or masculine and feminine, and there just is. With some exceptions. I'm not saying there's 0.00 exceptions, but I do think everyone has facets of these energies, some in higher quantities than other. And to understand again where you fall on it and respect it and be okay with it and comfortable with it and enjoy it from both sides is where happiness, I think, truly comes from, as at least as a woman for me. Until I could appreciate this, it was like banging my head against a wall, trying to understand why I couldn't understand men. And it's because I thought they should be like women. It's because I thought if they didn't think like me, didn't feel like me, didn't see things the way I did, then they're bad people. But that's not true. No more than the inverse of that is true. So I would say one of the sure signs that your feminine aspect is, or your feminine energy is out of alignment, is if you are still living in a world where you think feminine and masculine, or in some cases men and women, are going to be the same. They're just not. And this is the next point I'm going to make kind of piggybacks a little bit on this. And the next point is a good way of knowing if your feminine energy is out of alignment is if the men that you want don't want you. And obviously there are a myriad reasons why one individual person might not want you the way that you want them. It's not necessarily just down to something as simple as feminine and masculine energy, but it can be that if you are noticing that this is a pattern you're having in your life. And here's why. We're all attracted to something, okay? Some people think it is, my therapist says it's a dance. Particularly with dysfunctional relationships, I have been in the most dysfunctional ones, for example. She said that I went into the world and I knew this one dance, and I could see a man and somehow know that he knew it too. And he could look at me and know that I knew it, and we'd be dancing together. This is not how I dance, for the record. So that could be one thing. Another thing that I think really boils down to attraction, okay? And there's a great book you guys can read about this. It's actually going to be the book club pick for next month. It's called Feminine Lost. I'll link it down below. Listened to it on Audible the other day. Blew my freaking mind. And that book is going to articulate this so much more profoundly and concisely and extensively than I'm about to. But really what that book talks about is the feminine and masculine aspect and the ways that they repel, the ways they repel or attract to each other. And much the same way magnets do, right? Opposites attract. Men and women, or feminine and masculine energy, attracts to the opposite of itself. It's what makes our literal parts fit together, is because they're opposite types of parts. And that for me is certainly true. I've been a hyper feminine woman, girl, whatever, literally my whole life. The only times in my life, and I think I've already said this, but I filmed this video 3 times, so I don't know. Only time in my life that I have neglected, shirked, looked down upon, or hated the feminine aspect of myself was when I was deeply entrenched in my trauma. When I believed I was less of a person if I wasn't more like a boy, because being more like a boy made me feel safer in some way. So because I am so feminine in the way that I express myself, in the interests that I have, in the way that I present myself into the world, the feelings I have, just, I am super feminine, right? Either by accident or design, I am attracted to very masculine men. And masculine for me is someone who gets shit done. I want to feel protected with a man. I want to feel like he can take care of me. I want to feel safe with him. I want to feel like if shit goes south, he's there for me. I want to feel adored. I want to feel like I can look up to him. I want to feel like when I look at him, he is a solid figure. Like, that is attractive to me. I've only ever liked guys who have their shit together. Some of my friends, I used to grow up in a military town. A lot of my friends would say, Whitney likes military dudes. Like, that was my type. And it wasn't that I liked military dudes, although there was a huge pattern there for me. It was because in the town that I lived in, military dudes had careers, military dudes had health benefits, military dudes had their own cars, their own houses. Like, I just like that. The situation I would get into, right, is, again, going back to the times in my life that my trauma was most present and I was in my most dysfunctional relationships. I was very outwardly feminine presenting, right? And I would lure these guys in like moths to a flame every single time. Things would go great. 3 to 4 months, the feminine mask would fall off because I would start to get back into my boy energy, which was like competitive. and I wanted to dominate the relationship because I didn't want them to dominate me. I didn't want to feel vulnerable to them. And it never worked out. Those relationships never had a snow cone's chance in hell of working out because these were masculine men. That's why I was attracted to them. That's what I'm attracted to. And I was being masculine with them, and it turned them off. They just weren't into it. Some men like other men, but the men I liked, from what I understand, do not. And it made no sense that it should be attractive in any way, because men who look at women, or masculine energy that looks at feminine energy that they enjoy, it's almost like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like a spell get cast over them, where it's just this place they go to where everything is soft and smells good, and the voice of the feminine that they love sounds like music, and it's sexy and pleasurable, and it feels good, and it's something they can't get anywhere else. And then you come in and you break the spell the minute you start acting like a man with them. Now, that's not to say that you have to be a doormat. Again, I think this idea that feminine means weak is rooted in the idea that all things that are inherently feminine are invaluable and worthless and fragile. It's not true at all. But it's not what is attractive to a man. And if you want relationships with men, then you have to care about that. I think it's foolish to think you can just demand men be a way you want them to be so that they can do what you want them to do. That would never work the other way around. If a man came out and said that about women, he'd get crucified. So I think we need to be rational about that in terms of just accepting what they want and what they like. So if you are consistently having situationships, or if the relationship you're in now with the man that you're with, it's consistently kind of going in a direction you don't want it to, it doesn't feel the way you want it to feel, it could be because you're not in line with your feminine aspect. This can go another way too, in that maybe there is a man you were interested in who is also very feminine, and you are very feminine, and that's not working out. Like, I've only had one relationship that kind of springs to mind for me, and me and this person got along so well, that I couldn't figure out why it couldn't be more than it was. And now, many, many years later, I can look back at it and I'm like, oh, it's because he's more feminine. He's feminine as well. He wants to be the adored one. He wants to be the star. He wants to be the emotional one. He wants to be, he's not, I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm insulting him, because I don't think this is inherently insulting. I think very highly of this person. But he's not someone I don't think anyone could ever count on. He would need to be with someone that he could count on. He can't be the rock. He can't be the strong, rational, big decision-making person. But he's someone who I could talk to for hours about literally anything, and whose opinion I value and who I have a lot in common with. But that's probably because we're both feminine, and it worked in that way. I don't think... Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. He'll probably find someone who can be a woman who is just masculine enough to balance that out. That's going to be his ideal polarity. That's that attraction thing. So if you're consistently having issues with men, if the men you want consistently don't want you, it could be because you're not aware of exactly where you and your partner, or you and your crush, or you and whatever, where you each fall on this masculine and feminine scale, and you're not willing to adjust, essentially. Again, for me, if I enjoyed being in my masculine, if it came from a place of strength or pleasure, I guess is the better word. If I enjoyed being in my masculine, that'd be different. But it was never true. I was miserable. It was a defense mechanism. It was my little rabble-rouser way of trying to assert my dominance, because God forbid anyone ever think for 1 second, and 1 second at all, that they can get one over on me. And now that I'm in my feminine, the I take no shit part of me has not changed. It's something that everyone who knows me knows about me. Like, I don't take shit from anyone, but I go about making that clear in a different way now. And I don't feel the need to like assert it so much anymore. More than anything, I just remove myself from situations where people are giving me energy I don't want. It's not this anymore because this didn't even get me anywhere and it didn't feel good anyway. So again, you're the only one who can know the answer to this, but if you're consistently having issues with men like this, perhaps you should investigate the feminine and masculine aspects in what you're doing, and definitely read the book I was talking about. So the last way to know whether or not your feminine energy is out of alignment is to take note of whether your home life is shit. And this is a very good indication of whether or not your your feminine energy is in alignment. And here's why. I've noticed something over the past few years, and I think this is a narrative I've heard my whole life, but I feel like lately it's a lot more noticeable. And I always attribute it to the word just. You know, I don't just want to be a mom. I don't just want to be a wife. I don't just want to be a homemaker. And it's fine if that's not all you want to do in life, just like maybe not all you want to do is have a job. But for some reason, everyone looks at the career aspect as the most fulfilling thing there could ever be. Although tons of people hate their jobs, tons of people want to quit their jobs, tons of people will never have the kind of mythical career success they're promised. There's like tons of videos talking about I don't dream of labor and the Great Resignation. Like people are kind of waking up to the fact, I think, that all fulfillment in life does not come from your ability to earn money and buy things. It's bigger than that. Just like I think many years ago, women came to the realization that all of life isn't about having kids and cooking bacon for them. I don't know why bacon came to my mind, but yum. I think the problem is we are trying to, just the same way I said it with feminine and masculine energy, if you're putting too much into one or you're too overrun with one of these things and have little to none of the other, you are not in balance. Again, you might have a little more than the other. You might always just be more career oriented than everything else, or you might just be more home oriented than everything else, but you cannot live life only in one of those aspects. So I guess what I'm saying is home life is the best barometer, in my opinion, of where your feminine energy is. Home is a traditionally feminine area, and not just because of the idea that men are supposed to work and the women are supposed to stay home. Men, have you ever been to a single man's house? Like, it's held together by like dental floss and paper towels. It's like the bare minimum. That's where that expression, a woman's touch, comes from. We bring the beauty. We bring the deliciousness, the yumminess, the smell goodness, the softness. We make all the work that this man is doing worth doing when he has this to come home to. It's why, you know, I think it's terrible that things that are traditionally feminine are looked down on so much, because they're not looked down on when they're getting paid for. So in other words, professional child care. You would never look at someone who took a job as a professional child caregiver, whatever, and be like, you just look after kids. Not only because hopefully you're not a shitty person, but because they're getting paid for it. Same thing if you hired someone to come clean your house. You would never look at the person who comes to clean your house that you're paying to clean your house and be like, you're beneath me. Not only because hopefully you're not a shitty person, but also because they're earning money doing it. Same thing with a chef. Also, you're not going to convince me that people do not have a natural, intense interest and fascination with home when we have things like HGTV and the TV shows on there that are making so much money and getting so much attention. Same thing with like all the real estate shows we're seeing now. There's a bug, sorry. Like Selling Sunset. All these things are huge and they're about homes and houses. People are interested in this. Same thing with Food Network. Like all of these things that are so profitable, getting so much attention, yet it is somehow beneath us, particularly if you're a woman, to express interest in or pay any attention to. Like you're less of a human being if you know how to cook and clean. Even Cardi B said it in a song, like it's a point of pride or something. And I think that is something I see a lot of. That's something I've always seen a lot of with people who truly believe that it's cute or funny not to know how to cook or clean, and until you're roommates with one of these people, and then it's a freaking nightmare. But I think that to be home and focused on home forces you to do so many things that you can't do anywhere else. First of all, home is a little more isolating. You're kind of forced to sit and be alone with yourself and your thoughts. And if you're always running from yourself and running from the idea of solitude, that's a pretty good indication that you're nowhere near in your feminine aspect at all. And on top of that, to create a beautiful home is a gift you are giving yourself. And it's like a party you're throwing that you're constantly inviting other people to. That's how I feel about all traditionally feminine things. I feel like there's this idea that like, I don't just want to look good for a man. I don't want to get in shape for a man. I don't want to clean my house for a man. But it's like, you should just be doing this stuff for yourself anyway, because it benefits you and it feels good. But it creates like a party that people want to come to and never leave, and they don't want to go to anybody else's party but your party. You know what I'm saying, girl? I think that's the way people need to look at it more, because to continue to try to defy this expectation of what is traditionally feminine and make it seem like a negative thing is only hurting you. It really is. All the people who are trying to make money off of it, pushing this narrative because it's cute and trendy, and a lot of money is being made doing it. That's the crazy thing about it, where it's just, we've lost the plot, I think, in so many ways about what it actually means to celebrate being a woman, when the only way we celebrate it is to look down on things that are traditionally feminine and only find value in things that are traditionally masculine. And that's kind of why I want to make more of this content and why I feel so passionate about it. I even want to I wish I could figure out a way to make homemaking content, because I watch homemaking videos all the time. I love them. They are meditative and calming, and just everyone on planet Earth can think of a home they've been in from the time they were a young child, or even recently, that they felt so safe and happy and content within. But that took effort on someone's part. We can all say when we were younger, maybe you had a rough upbringing, and you can look back at your childhood and be like, I really wish that I felt safe and happy and at home, and that home was a special place to be. But you can give that to yourself. And why, if it was something you needed and you can agree that you needed, can you say that nobody else could benefit from it? Like, that's the other thing I don't understand. Home can be such a sacred, beautiful, special place. And that starts with someone taking care of it and putting that energy into it. And I personally enjoy it, so this is really easy for me to say. But if you're someone who is neglecting these things because you've got it in your head somehow that it makes you some kind of peon to do so, I really think you need to examine those beliefs and see if they're actually working for you. All right, guys, I don't even have time to do a proper outro here. I have got to go get this baby from school. I will catch you guys in the next one. There'll be more videos in this series coming very, very soon. Again, check Patreon if you want to get the skinny on this book. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you are new here, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.